Morning Intuitives figured I'd once again try to get a video out before I have to be at work at 6 o'clock in the morning. So here we go. If I look tired, because it's about 4 in the morning right now. And sorry about that. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. It doesn't cost you anything, and it might help me a little bit in the algorithm. I'm not trying to make a career out of this or anything, but as small as I am, certain thresholds, like once I get to 1,000, my videos might get circulated a little more, and they might help a few people who, if the algorithm helps out, might stumble across them. And I always like hearing from those of you that said my videos help, because that's why this channel exists. Excuse me. There we go. As I said, I did just get up. It is 4 o'clock in the morning here. But what I wanted to talk about today is something that many INFJs, if not struggle with, certainly, reach the warning signs of. I know I did. I didn't personally struggle with this issue, but there was a time in my life where I was certainly heading down that path, and that is addiction. Many INFJs at some point in their life struggle with some kind of addiction, be it drugs or alcohol, and it could be all different kinds of drugs, and it can start for many different reasons. And a lot of times, though not always, it's usually tied to either our career or our love life, because being INFJs, we don't develop addiction or substance problems of any kind because we're like that big into the party scene and we just love going out and yeah, do get fucked up. No. If we're going to develop issues with substance, it's because we're trying to escape something, or we're trying to, in our NITI loop way, outthink something, and we think, well, this substance will help me think clearer and I'll be able to put the pieces of the puzzle together, and all of a sudden I'll have that eureka moment and it'll all make sense. And I'll be able to, push forward, because right now, whatever it is that I'm going through makes no sense, and I will not rest, and I will not focus on anything else until I somehow think my way through this, because the answer is in my head somewhere, and I know all I have to do is somehow get past this mental barrier, and there's something I'm missing. If I just keep going over it, I'll find it, and it'll all fall in place. I know we've all been there. And a lot of times, INFJs being idealists, we have this ideal of, what could be. And a lot of times what could be is very possible, but it would also include people being authentic and having integrity and, being willing to call out the scumbags, which is not always the case, and certainly a topic for other videos. We're not going to go down that rabbit hole right now. But what can lead an INFJ to substance problems, for one, like I said, in the work environment, if you're not satisfied with what you're doing for a living, like, not so much about pay, because let's be honest, for INFJs, pay beyond do I have enough to survive doesn't matter. Like, for an INFJ, as long as you can, afford your shitty apartment and food and, utilities, car insurance, as long as all your bills are paid, we really don't care beyond that. We're not into that whole very narcissistic, very baby boomer keeping up with the Joneses, like, well, I make this, I make this, and look at all my stuff, and that's so boomer, that's just so boomer, that whole keeping up with the Joneses, because for them, and here's my sidebar, because I'm going to go down this rabbit hole a little bit, because for them, high school never ends. So it's all about, competing with their clique of people. Because remember, specifically the boomers in Chestertology, they all fucking never left Chester County. They've been dealing with the same people since high school. That's all they know. It's all they want to know, because they know if they leave the safety of their little cult, that everybody else, and I have seen this, can see them for what they really are. Those years of nostalgia aren't going to protect them in their familial and community bonds that they so cherish, which are all bullshit and fake. But back to what I was talking about. So, as I said, an INFJ is not going to worry about stuff like that. What they are going to worry about is if they feel they're not contributing anything useful in their job, if there's no purpose to it, if they're not making the world a better place, if they're not helping people, that'll eat at them, particularly if that job is not paying you all that well and it's taking up all your time. Like, if you're working 7 days a week, 70 plus hours a week, maintaining a golf course as a assistant golf course superintendent, like I was. And, that's why I drank too much in that era, because you have no life. You can't even engage with people when you want to. All you do is work a job you hate, and it's basically shoved in your face that you're supposed to treat, essentially taking care of a glorified playground as if it was emergency services, like being a firefighter, which is what I wanted to do. And at the time, that wasn't possible due to hiring freezes caused by the Great Recession, for the most part. So that can cause an INFJ to want to escape their horrible status quo that they feel there's no way out of, and that can be for many different reasons. In my case, it was because it's like, well, all I do is work. I don't have time to do anything. I gotta get up at 3:30 in the morning, because I gotta be at work at 5 a.m. 7 days a week. I'm living in an area I despise. There's fewer and fewer people that I actually want to engage with, because more and more of the people that I did get along with when I grew up here are all getting the fuck out of Dodge, and who can blame them? I can't apply for the job I want more than anything because they're not testing. No matter how much you prepare, how much you want it, how the fuck do you get a job if they're not hiring? Boomers don't seem to get there. You're just knock on the door. It's like, really, for a civil service job, like, I want to be a firefighter. It's like, we're not testing. I don't care. Don't you know who I am? That's the boomers' answer. Like, these Chestertologists, honestly, and my brother too, because they've anointed him as one of them. My brother refuses to make a resume because he feels he's above that. So he was on an interview and like, oh yeah, do you have a resume? And his answer was, don't you knows who's Ozems? Because he's fully brainwashed and thinks, my aunt, the queen bee narc, is some kind of authority figure. But he's benefited from those delusions all his life, so I guess he'll continue to believe it, and he's admitted that he's in it for the will. Anyway, so it's escape. An INFJ will resort to substances to escape, not to, like in that social party culture. I mean, like by themselves, just to get to some state of mind where they're not constantly miserable and constantly pissed off and constantly thinking about how bad their status quo sucks, and there may legitimately or not be nothing they can do about it, at least that would change it in any meaningful way at the moment. And they'll just, they're seeking a couple hours where they don't have to think of how bad their life sucks. And that can lead an INFJ to substance abuse problems. It is funny, and I will mention this too, INFJ thing aside, is when I was graduating from Penn State, and we were all, all the people I was graduating with were getting our job offers, and one of the main professors in the program actually said, he's like, yeah, guys, I'm going to tell you the truth now. 5 years from now, half of you are going to say, fuck golf course maintenance. The other half of you are going to be raging alcoholics. And that is what happened. Yeah, what an industry. Anybody, don't say, I want to be a golf course superintendent. If you're that fucking brainwashed, I'll talk to you first and tell you the truth that they don't want you to know. But another main reason an INFJ can resort to substance abuse is, as I said, with relationships. That lack of unconditional love, that lack of truly being understood by the people around you, that feeling of, that you're this alien being in a world that you don't understand, you can't adapt to it. Not only can you not pretend to be like everybody else, you don't want to. So you may find in your solitude, look for, again, a way to escape that, some kind of substance that can, at least what you're trying to do, is numb your brain to the point where perhaps you can think normal, or actually try to quiet your mind for a little bit, because particularly in an NITI loop, our minds never stop spinning. It's constant. We can't sleep. If you're an INFJ, you know how it is, and that's how a lot of INFJs go down the path of addiction, is they want some way that for at least briefly they can use some kind of substance that can get them from just overthinking the same stuff over and over again and constantly dwelling on how bad things suck. And for some, it may not actually even be that bad. For others, you know, it can be. I'll admit, like I've mentioned before, when I was shot, and I was working a manual labor job, so of course, I was reliant on pain medicine that was legitimately prescribed to me by my orthopedic surgeon, but I wouldn't have been able to, work manual labor without it 2 months after a major, major surgery, well, near fatal, and you might think that it was your leg. It's like, yeah, but my femoral artery was nicked, so I almost bled out. Anyway, and I'm not, in all honesty, like I shouldn't be able to walk without a cane. My doctor tells me that every year for my yearly checkup. Like, it was just sheer will alone. Like, you should be walking with a cane. I don't get this. But I wanted to mention that because when I was working that shitty job that I despised after that injury, the painkillers did a lot more for my mental pain than my physical pain. It's just like numbed my mind to the point where it's like, yeah, this sucks, but it's not that bad. I guess it was the dopamine and serotonin release. And I mentioned that, although, in my case, it was medicine that was legitimately prescribed. And for a recent serious injury and major surgery, I can see why some people would seek that just to numb their mind to the point to make whatever their shitty status quo is tolerable in the moment, because at least they may think in the short term there's nothing I can do, and if I don't do something in the short term to help me get through the day to day, I'll never make it, and whatever long-term plans I have can never be brought to fruition. I have to, all that I can do is just survive in the moment. And that can lead a lot of INFJs down, the path of addiction to one substance or another, as they feel that there's nothing they can do to improve their situation in the short term. And, they know perhaps maybe like 6 months down the road, opportunities can arise. There's a chance they can take to get them out. But then the question arises, well, how do I survive the next 6 months? Because the status quo at that point, they're at their breaking point. It's like, this is unsustainable. I can't do this for 6 more months. Probably longer, because as we all know, especially if you're dealing with anything with a baby boomer, they're always going to move the goalposts. And, they love moving the goalposts. They love humiliating you. It turns them on more than anything, aside from them being able to spout about how great and superior they are. So be aware, when INFJs deal with addiction, it doesn't come from, as I said, a party culture, because INFJs quickly realize if they try to use substances or drink too much to try to fit in with going out, that it doesn't work. That, the whole idea of some people, like, you look at someone, it's like, how the fuck did you do that? And like, well, I was drunk. It's like, that doesn't make any sense. I don't act that radically different when I'm drunk. INFJs drunk might be less introverted. You might start running your mouth, start a conversation a little bit easier, but you're not radically different than who you normally are. I'm the same eccentric, philosophical, sarcastic guy cracking jokes. I remember in college, trying things, but well, maybe this will make me wrong. No, not at all. None of them. Not a damn one. But understand, when INFJs struggle with addiction, it's not a love of partying. It's something in their life that they feel they can't change in the moment, that they have to find a way to survive. And this usually, you get led down this path because, in part, because the INFJs will also believe, well, there's nobody that understands what I'm going through. There's nobody willing to show me empathy that's willing to listen. Everybody around is just saying, like, oh, what's so bad? The status quo is great. Just, great job, great life, I think it's great, therefore that makes it great. We are baby boomers. Yeah, that kind of thing. So, your only escape is to find a way to escape mentally, and substances can help you do that, because if you're reaching out for help, and which is not easy for INFJs to do. I made a video about INFJs struggling to ask for help, and if you go to like someone who's supposed to care about you, like a relative, and you ask this deep emotional question, and their response is, like quoting a Rolling Stones lyric, then you're on your own. You might not have we're forward thinking, but again, there might not be anything you can do in the short term. So just be aware of it. Those are my thoughts on the unique way in which INFJs struggle with addiction. So remember, trust your intuition. If you think a situation's going to hell, get out before it does, and uh, you know, don't give up your integrity for substances to help you get past the short term. If you got to make a Hail Mary pass and get out of somewhere, you're best making the Hail Mary pass if that's what your intuition's telling you. And don't listen to the narcissist who wants to keep you in that shitty status quo because they get off on watching you suffer. And please subscribe.